So the first step in learning about composition is knowing rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds suggests having your subject, which is my sister Dana here, slightly to the side, which I'll show on the video here, what the rule of thirds looks like, which is 3 squares across and 3 squares down in composition. And so you can do this with different subjects. So right now she's in that rule of thirds, but I can also do that with other things. So for example, here is a little plant, and now if I focus on it here, you can see that it's within that rule of thirds as well. And so this is good to create balance within your photo or your videos, and can be really helpful to carry with you for starting off in photography and everything. So that is step 1. In composition is having your subject centered. So this is kind of the opposite of rule of thirds. So you generally don't want your subject centered because it kind of creates imbalance. But if you're really going for a certain look where you want your subject to be really like bold and straightforward, then you can do that. See, now it looks like she has some authority because I'm doing a low angle, and I don't know what authority of, but authority of some sort, and it's a bit more of a striking pose than if you were to maybe put her in the rule of thirds, which for your eye is a little bit more balanced. And so you can kind of see the difference there. It looks like she's more in the nature, and it just looks like more comforting, I guess, for the eye, you could say. But then when she's centered, then it looks a lot more authoritative. For this, I'm now focusing on foreground interest and depth, which, as you can see here, the grass that's growing is in the foreground, and in the background you can see the trees far away and the mountains. So this really creates depth in your photo, so you can see the things that are in the foreground, which gives you perspective of how big your background is. Especially if you're looking at a mountain or something and you focus on something close up, it'll give you perspective to see how big that object really is. And you can do that also by having some rocks in your foreground too, which gives a really cool perspective sometimes. So you can just like play around with that and just have a closer angle, and then have your background still there. And it helps to use the rule of thirds here still, so you can see on the left the mountain is falling in that rule of thirds, and then the leading lines are directing towards the trees in the background there. And it also helps to use this on wide angle photography or on with lenses and stuff. So right now the setting I have is with the wide angle setting, which also has a good perspective that can be used. So now we're focusing on something called leading lines. So as you can see here, there's an abstract line made with the wood coming from what's close to me here, and then you can see the log right behind Dana there, that it's kind of directing us to our subject. So when you have a photo, it will direct your eyes towards your subject. Here's another example of leading lines. As you can see, the mountains on your left there are kind of creating an abstract line that points towards those trees in the background there with the reflection. And then the lines here in the foreground are created by the rocks going towards those trees. Then also the curved line of the rocks right over there also leads to your subject, which is the reflective trees there. So for this, it's something called fill the frame. So you can see that I'm pretty close to my subject now, and it fills the frame essentially. So there's not any distracting objects around you, and it really helps you again focus on your subject. This can be effective for if Dana was to face me, like have her face facing me here like this. Again, it can create that almost authoritative look, which she's not giving right now, but that's okay. You can imagine it in your head. But if you're really like having the eyes like directly on you, really creates almost like kind of an uncomfortable feeling where it makes the subject or viewer feel like they almost have to do something, or like brings like a call to action or something. But when you have the subject looking away, it makes you feel a little bit more like at peace about the photo and comfortable. So it really depends on what your goal is for your photo. If you want to have a certain voice behind your photo. For this example, I'm focusing on minimalism. So you can see the minimalistic subject is the water, and then my subject is the shoes here. And it just really helps you focus on your subject and can create like a really peaceful image.